The following is an encore presentation of stories from the Dooralong Transformation Centre. It's 12 minutes and 19 seconds past 10. You're listening, of course, to 94.9 Remus Central Coast on this wet Wednesday morning. And joining me in the studio is William from the Dooralong Transformation Centre. Is it raining out at Dooralong, William?
It was raining a bit last night, but it wasn't this morning.
Yeah. You probably do need it out there, don't you? Because you've got some beautiful grounds that you've got to look after.
Yeah. But once it starts raining, it definitely sets in there in the ground.
It forgets to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. A bit cold as well this time of the year, I'm thinking.
Yes, in the mornings it's freezing cold, and at the nights as well. But during the day it's not so bad.
What time do you have to get up in the morning then?
I do a breakfast shift there, so I normally get up at about 5:30.
Oh, it's going to be cold.
It's cold then.
Dark and cold.
Yeah,
and
dark
wet.
and cold.
Yeah. Well, this morning you're in a warm studio, so that's good. How long have you been at Dooralong, William?
Just under 6 months.
Yeah. And is it going well for you?
Oh, yeah, it's going great. It's that place saved my life. Everything's going great now. I'm 3 weeks out of leaving, and everything is going perfect. Yeah.
So after a long time in your life of things not going well, the last 8 months have been good.
Yeah. It's been a tough road getting here, but I think I'm at the end of the hurdle now, or the end of the tough time.
Yeah, it's like going through a tunnel, isn't it? But you can see the light.
Yeah, I can see the light. I definitely can see the light now.
Yeah, that's terrific. So what was your addiction, William?
It was drugs at an early age.
How early is early?
14. When my father passed away, and I started taking drugs. I don't know, so I didn't have to feel the pain, and alcohol was there, but it wasn't much of an issue. And then when I had children, I decided to stop taking drugs, but then my drinking progressed quite heavily.
Yeah. You say you were 14, you were taking drugs to sort of mask the pain of your dad dying. Where does a 14-year-old who'd never taken drugs before probably in his life, where did you get them from?
I always hanged around a bit of an older crowd, and I sort of grew up in a bit of a rough area in western suburbs, so just through school, it was just there.
It wasn't difficult.
I skateboarded, and I was already in a crowd of people that were doing it, and then it was just there straight away.
And you were doing that, as you told us, rather than deal with the pain and the grief of losing your dad, it was just easier for a 14-year-old to bury those emotions under drugs.
I hated the world instantly, and I couldn't be around people that knew my father, so I just turned to a new group of people that didn't know anything about, so I didn't have that people feeling sorry for me, and drugs just never let me down. I didn't feel that drugs would leave me or do that, and I didn't want to deal with the world, and it was the only thing that made me feel good and not think about it.
Sounds as if you were really close to your dad.
Yeah, he was my idol. He was a great man.
Yeah. And now, of course, if anybody else who might be listening is in that situation that you found yourself at 14, 15, drugs isn't really the way, is it?
No, drugs is definitely not the way. And it's definitely not what he would have wanted for me. I was very young and didn't know how to deal with it, but there's definitely better ways to deal with things than drugs or alcohol.
And there are proper the grief counsellors that young people can speak to, aren't there? Headspace and places like that, which are just for young people who are grieving, and it's a process that's difficult. You need help doing it properly, don't you?
Yeah, most definitely.
Not turning to drugs or alcohol. It's just gonna sit there and be buried until it sort of escapes.
Well, it doesn't end well, because it just masks the pain for a while, and then eventually when it catches up with you, you don't really know how to deal with it, I suppose. But
Okay, so you're a teenage lad. You're into drugs. But also presumably you're looking for a job as working at this time, are you? Or a little bit later. Yeah.
I was working through high school, because once my father passed away, I wanted to help my mum financially. So I was working as a kitchen hand through school, but then I left school in year 10 and started working in warehouses, and I had to help my mum. She couldn't afford to live on her own.
Yeah.
So I instantly started working at
You
a young
stepped
age.
up to be the breadwinner.
Yeah. I had to grow up fast.
Yeah. And at this stage, you were thinking, oh, the drugs are manageable, they're not interfering too much with my life?
Yeah, well, marijuana I did heavily, but the heavy drugs I only did on weekends. And somehow I always showed up for work on a Monday, and I managed it in my eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know, looking back, actually what I would have looked like on them days, but somehow I maintained jobs and always had money and paid the bills.
When did things start going south for you?
When I was I'd say about 29 or 30, sorry, and I came out of a 10-year relationship, and I was unfaithful in that relationship, and I went straight into a new relationship, and I hit the booze hard, and I got caught drink driving, and I lost the house that I owned a house with that ex-partner, and things went downhill very quickly from doing that.
Sounds as if, you've really turned a corner, but not in a good way. It's, you've turned a corner and things have gone really bad for you quite quickly.
Yeah, I went from having everything to losing it all within a few months, and really being at what I thought was rock bottom at the time, but it was nowhere near what was to come.
And is it about this stage that alcohol sort of overtakes drug taking?
Yeah, well, at that stage, that's not long after my new partner fell pregnant, so I stopped taking drugs, and then I drank every day heavily. And then once again, it was to numb the pain and the shame and the guilt of something I've done.
Yeah.
Instead of dealing with it.
Relationships and what have you. Yeah. And how many years did this go on for?
It went on for about a year and a half till my son was, because it was during the pregnancy, till he was born, and about half a year old till I went to AA and I got sober for 8 months. But that didn't really last that long because I was in a relationship with someone that drank, so it was only a matter of time till I started drinking again.
Yeah. I would imagine, I don't know, I'm hoping you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm imagining that if you're in a relationship with somebody who's sort of drinking heavily, is it almost impossible for just one of you to sort of get yourself clean?
Yeah, well, it was, at first I thought I was managing it, but it's definitely impossible for me anyway, because it was like a ticking time bomb, just waiting, and it was only 8 months before I was drinking again. And it started off with just one drink, and then within 2 weeks it was back to every day.
You must have turned another corner as well for the better, because at some point you would have made a decision to go to Dooralong. When was that, and what prompted you to ring up Dooralong in the first place?
Well, unfortunately, it took a long time. Like I thought I managed my alcohol for another couple of years and had another child with my partner, moved to the Central Coast, and she was running a business and everything was going well, but I was still drinking heavily, and it was, I think, I didn't like the person I became, and things caught up with me mentally, and unfortunately I had no self-worth and I didn't like myself, and I made some silly decisions, and I turned to suicide, and I was hospitalised from taking prescription medication and drinking heavily, and was found by my ex-partner having a seizure, and I ended up in hospital in an induced coma, and when I woke up from that coma, it was the most disgusting feeling I've ever felt, and the hospital staff and some other people recommended rehab, and that's when I looked into Dooralong.
It's a tough journey you've had, isn't it, William?
Yeah, I rang up Dooralong on the 16th of October, and there was a little bit of a waiting list. I rang up 2 days after that seizure, 2 days after I woke up from the coma, and it took a little while to get in, but looking back now, it was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah. Look, we're going to break for some more music now because, well, there is a much more optimistic tale that William has to tell us. And just to give the listeners a bit of a preview, you're being baptised soon, aren't you?
Yes, I think the date is in September sometime. I'm getting as I was brought up Catholic, but I'm getting rebaptised and getting my faith back.
Yeah. So we'll leave William at that point in his story, probably the low point in his life, where he's rung Dooralong because he's coming out of his induced coma. He just needs help. Between that happening and where he is now, there's a pretty interesting tale for him to tell. So stay tuned to 94.9. Oh, and look, I should also say, if some of the things that we've been talking about this morning are affecting you and upsetting you, or if you just want to talk about any of the issues that we have touched upon, don't forget you can always phone Lifeline on 13 11 14. They've got telephonists there. Well, no, counsellors. They've got counsellors on the telephone waiting to speak to you now 24/7. So if you need that support, if you just want to talk about something, give them a ring, 13 11 14. We're talking to William this morning. It's 28 minutes past 10, I should have said. Yes, we're talking to William this morning from the Dooralong Transformation Centre. We left William's story at that point where he had reached a low point in his life, hospitalisation, what have you. He's reached out to Dooralong, and then the grand day itself will arrive, your very first day at Dooralong. What was that like?
It was one of the most confronting things I ever done. I remember getting off the bus and you sort of go through them questions in your head of how did I end up here, but the people, I remember them being very welcoming, and it was a bit intimidating because everyone's so nice, but
not what you were expecting?
Yeah, I think I watched too many movies of how rehab looked, and but yeah, it was a very confronting day. I don't remember much of it, but I was very scared. But it was where I needed to be.
Yeah, in my own mind's eye, I have a vision of some building like they had in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest sort of thing.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's not like that, is it?
No, definitely not.
So you're there, you're safe. Other people that we've spoken to from Dooralong say that during those first few days, they very seriously thought about packing up and walking out the gate. Did you?
Yes, several times. I think having children on the outside as well, it was hard being away from them at first, but I think I packed my bags several times in that first few weeks.
Yeah. You didn't leave, we're glad to say.
Yes.
And over the last 8 months, you've probably reflected upon how foolish that would have been.
Yeah, I would be kicking myself now, but I'm glad I pushed through all them hard times.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a very good place now.
So, getting down to the serious stuff, I am imagining the people at Dooralong, they would have gone back to the origin of where your addiction started, and that was when your dad died. They would have dealt with those issues surrounding grief and loss and those things, would they?
Yeah, between the caseworkers, the support staff, and the psychologists, they're amazing, and they don't leave any stone unturned. They find the root of everything in you, and they don't make you, but they help you get it out. And I definitely dealt with a lot of things that I didn't even realise were the reasons why I drank or drugged.
Yeah, that's right. And I can understand why people contemplate packing the bags, because that is a hard thing to do, to confront and honestly confront your inner self, and not easy.
Yeah, it's tough, but there's great rewards if you can stick it out. Like there's tough weeks and good weeks, like the weeks like where it's family systems or your early childhood, but if you can just dig deep and make it through them weeks, it's definitely worth it.
Do you have many of those moments, those, I think they call them aha moments, where you say sort of, right now, it makes sense, I can see why I did X, Y, Z. It all falls into place.
I've had several over the last few months where I'm just like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And I've never looked at it that way, but when you're in the height of addiction, it's hard to see it any other way than your own.
Yeah, yeah. And of course it is the Salvation Army. You said you were brought up Catholic. What did you think of the very first sort of chapel night that you attended on the Wednesday evening?
Well, I did. I turned my back on religion from when my dad passed away, and I remember arriving saying, "I'm open to anything," but yeah, it was very intimidating. But because everyone was so happy, and it was very confronting, and I was like, well, these people, they seemed crazy, but now that I'm there, they didn't seem crazy. They seemed happy, and but yeah, it's definitely confronting that first chapel service.
Yeah, I think a lot of the guys tell us they ended up on that very first Wednesday evening, sat at the back, very sort of, not moving, but as the weeks and months progressed, they moved forward and found themselves eventually on the front row, singing and clapping and standing up with everybody else.
Yeah, I was the back row for probably the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then now I'm right up front clapping. I'm part of the crazy clapping crew.
Yeah. And we mentioned before the break that we had that as far as your sort of faith or spiritual journey is concerned, you were telling me, perhaps if I can invite you to tell the listeners now, you don't just go to the Salvation Army Church, do you, which they sort of organise for you on Sundays. You found another church family.
Yeah, I also attend Hope UC at Charmhaven. I love it there. I still go to Salvation Army Long Jetty Church, which was where I went every Sunday with Salvation Army, but on my weekend leave when I have my own time, I go to Hope UC at Charmhaven. It's amazing there.
Yeah, you enjoy it.
Yeah, I love it.
And you told us you were going to be baptised soon. Would that be at Hope UC?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's the 29th of September. I'm not sure, but yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So you've had a bit of a spiritual journey as well, haven't you? As well as an emotional journey over these last 8 months or so.
Yeah, well, I think like looking back, even though I turned my back on God for so long, He definitely didn't turn His back on me, because a lot of the things I went through and survived, someone was looking out for me. And you have these moments during your time in recovery where it's higher power stuff, where you'll be having a bad day and then the topic of that day is exactly what you're going through. And or you'll go to a church and someone will ask to pray for you and it's exactly what's going through your head. And yeah, there's God has never turned His back on me, and I'm so glad I went there and have re-established my faith with God. And they don't enforce it on you there. They do say it's a spiritual program, but it can be a higher power of your own understanding. But I'm so glad that I found something that I had in me a long time ago, the way I was brought up, and I've got my faith back, and it did restore me back to sanity. My sanity. I said it wrong. Yeah, I think I said it wrong. Sorry.
No, you're fine. It restored you back to your sanity.
Yeah, that's sorry. Yeah,
no, that's exactly.
And
right.
I'm so appreciative of that place.
Yeah, and it sounds as if it's going to be your church, Hope, or whatever churches you go to in the future. They're always going to be a rock for you, so that whenever we face those troubled times, there's always going to be somewhere. There's always going to be a church family. There's always going to be a pastor that you can go and just say, "Look, I'm doing it tough at the moment. Pray for me."
Well, I've only been going to Hope now for about a month, and they've been nothing but welcoming. And I've got, I think, 3 weeks left in program, and I've set up. I've got my AA meetings and NA meetings that I've got. I've got my church that I attend, and I think it's all these things you need to keep your connection with God and with your recovery, so you don't slip back into that old life. And I will be attending church regularly and meetings and doing all the recommended things. I've got 2 little boys that I don't want to let down, as well as myself, and I'm giving this recovery 100%.
Okay, more music. We'll come back. We'll perhaps talk about those little boys of yours, those kids that mean so much to you. And we're back, 2211. We're back talking to William this morning, who has re-established himself with God. He's sort of turned back to God. He's being baptized soon. Church and Christ and grace are going to be a part of his life as it stretches out into eternity. You've talked once or twice, William, about your kids. Tell us about your kids and what they mean to you.
It's Jackson and Mason. They're 4 and 2. 2 boys. They're my world. They mean the world to me, and somehow they haven't seen any of this side of me, so I've got time for them to have the life that they deserve with me. But yeah, they're 2 amazing boys there, and they idolise me, which is good.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. So it's your responsibility now to be a good dad for them.
Yeah, most definitely. Like, my father passed away when I was young from cancer, and that was out of his control. But I've got a chance to make things right with my addiction and give them the life they deserve with me, as a great role model like my father was. And yeah.
So what happened to your dad was beyond his control, but you can control being there for your boy's life. So that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I do. I want abstinence. I want a life, a fulfilling life with them, and they actually like coming to church with me as well. My son calls it the singing and clapping church, and
that would be a great name for any church, the singing and clapping church. Yeah, that's Hope You See we're talking.
Yeah. But they do the same at Long Jetty and our chapel service at Salvation Army, Dooralong. But yeah, I think as well they like the lights and stuff at Hope You See.
Yeah, the whole experience. Yeah. So how long now? You did tell me, how long is it till you graduate? A couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think I graduate on the 21st of August, and I leave there on the 22nd. And I go to a transitional house. Yeah,
and that's that. I think we traditionally call them halfway houses, because that's a phrase that we all understand. And during that time at that transitional accommodation, you'll be looking for a job and you'll be looking for long-term accommodation.
Yes, I've gone into the last stage of the program now, which is called re-entry. They let me go into it early so I could start to look for work and apply now, so I can go into a job hopefully before I leave. If not, I'll find one when I get there. And then the goal is to start working and then find my own rental that my children can come stay with me at.
Yeah. And you're talking about finding a job. Are you a skilled worker, William?
Before working with my ex-partner's business, I was a forklift driver. Okay. So I'm going to go back to warehousing and do a bit of forklift driving and pick and packing, because I don't want to go straight out and try to make drastic changes. And
slowly.
Yeah, so it's something I've always loved before. So and I know what I'm doing, so it won't be a big change. Yeah.
So if there's anybody out there listening who knows of a vacancy for a warehouseman on the Central Coast, get in touch with us here at Rima, or give the people at Dooralong a ring, because William would be ready and willing to have a crack at that. So you told us that you work in the kitchens, but you won't be, because it's the big meal tonight. You're not cooking the big meal, are you?
We did a bit of prep for it this morning.
Yeah. What's on the menu tonight then?
We're having roast pork tonight.
Roast pork. It's chapel night for those visitors, for those listeners who don't know. Every week they have a chapel service at Dooralong, and immediately before that they have a great roast dinner.
Yes,
and William will be helping.
It's a big feast.
It's a big feast, and they were kind enough to invite us and at Rima, and we've been, and the room is full of energy. Yeah,
and it's they're amazing nights as well at the moment, because I think every week for a while now people are graduating, and it's good hearing people's testimonies and where they've come from and where they are now, and something special happens in them chapel nights. It's amazing.
Yeah, we can sort of confirm that. Look, William, it's been an amazing story. You have been to the depths, that period of hospitalisation that you were telling us about, and the things that sort of happened immediately before that. And here you are now, about to be baptised, and you've got your own church, and you have a faith and a relationship with God. If we had met the William from 8 months ago and said that's what the future held, would you have believed us?
No, definitely not.
No.
I couldn't picture me in the position I am now, and it's maybe a bit of a bad past, but it's one of the best positions I've ever been in, and I'm really grateful.
And really, we talk about, people say, oh, God doesn't perform any miracles. He does. I mean, from being suicidal, as you said you were, to coming to Dooralong, to finding faith, to being baptised, to sort of having a great relationship with your kids in this past 8 months, that in itself is a miracle.
Yeah, God never gives up on people.
No.
It's good, and I'd like to also really acknowledge how much great work the people at Dooralong do, the support staff, the nurses, the caseworkers, the management, the groundskeepers, everyone there. It's like a well-oiled machine, and they save lives, and the slogan, miracles happen there, they do. If I could look back on myself and give myself a message back in addiction, it would be to make sure I got there, and I'm so glad I did and got to be part of, with the people that were there that wanted recovery at the time that I was there. And I've got some amazing friends because of that place, and good friends that want a good future, and we all look after each other there. I got not a bad word to say about that place.
I can't say any more than that. Thanks, William, for coming in and sharing your story with us. We do pray that God will continue that relationship with you and bring you ever closer to those two beautiful little boys that you've got, and that he keeps you in the palm of his hand as the years unfold.
Thank you.
You've been listening to an encore presentation of the Dooralong stories, which can be heard live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. and repeated 8 p.m. Sunday and 1 a.m. Wednesday, right here on 94.9 rema.cc.